And going live in 3, 2, 1.
Great, thank you, Steph. So again, just to quickly kick us off, this is a special meeting of the Stable Token Commission. We are starting at 9:01 a.m. Mountain Time. Mr. Chairman, if you'd like me to call a quorum, I will go ahead and do just that. And Mr. Chairman, we do not have audio from your side if you are speaking. Apologies. I see a thumbs up, so I will go ahead and do a call for quorum. Commissioner Racines?
Here.
Commissioner Pope?
Here.
Commissioner Naves?
Here.
Commissioner Wallace?
Here.
Noting that Commissioner Reville will not be available. And Commissioner Meyer. Mr. Chairman, you do have a quorum. And of course, Chairman Gordon. So multiple thumbs up there. Thank you. So you do have a quorum. So it does seem like there may be some audio difficulties momentarily. So I will just keep us running here because this is intended to be a brief meeting and a fully virtual meeting with the express purpose of reviewing the recommendations by our evaluation committees for each respective RFP and agree to move forward with a subset of qualified vendors who have been previously identified to move forward into oral interviews with those respective evaluation committees. And as such, there is not going to be public comment today. We'll have that at our next monthly meeting on the 27th, which will again take place in the Wyoming Capitol Auditorium. I'll also quickly read my disclaimer. Key decisions pertaining to the Wyoming Stable Token Initiative will be made by the commissioners of the Stable Token Commission or the state legislature in public meetings such as this. At this time, no blockchain has been selected for deployment of Wyoming stable tokens, and no Wyoming stable tokens have been issued. Further, the only commissioners are those appointed by statute, the governor, or a majority vote of the commission. Information outside of these public meetings should only be considered factual and legitimate if it is distributed through through our official channels. At this time, these are limited to our website at stabletoken.wyo.gov, the Wyoming legislature website at wyoleg.gov, and our social media channels with the @WyoStable username on Twitter, YouTube, GitHub, and Warpcast. So, Mr. Chairman, if there are no questions or items from your side, I am happy to segue into the RFP oral interview memo and socialize that with the group. I'm seeing again a thumbs up for our audio listeners, so I will segue into our oral interview memo. So again, the goal here is to discuss the feedback we've gotten from the evaluation committees on the RFPs we've received and begin segueing into oral interviews with a subset of qualified vendors based on preliminary scores and feedback from those reviewers. So in terms of the action, again, as I just said, in terms of our authority, that is under Wyoming Statute 40-31-105, subsection C, Romanet 3, and our emergency procurement rules promulgated on November 20th, 2024 that are still in effect. Should the commissioners not want to approve this subset of qualified vendors for the next step of evaluation, which would be oral interviews, we can switch up personnel and re-rank. We can offer interviews to other qualified vendors who were still in that qualified pool, or we extend the timeline and re-advertise RFPs should that be the direction that the commission wants to go in. In terms of background, the commission approved 7 RFPs total. 5 of those requests for proposal were ratified at the monthly meeting held on December 19th, 2024. And then the final 2 RFPs during a special meeting on January 3rd. And these are all pertaining to the development, deployment, and ongoing management of a potential Wyoming stable token, or WIST. Again, of these 7, and Governor, it does sound like we have the volume from your office now. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So again, of those 7 RFPs, they cover both the technical and financial elements, as well as internal controls, audit and attestation, and analytics. So the proposal submissions from qualified vendors for RFPs 1, 2, 3, 5, and 7 were due on January 30th, and proposal submissions for RFPs 4 and 6 were due on February 7th. All of these submissions were reviewed by evaluation committees composed of commissioners, agency resources, and independent subject matter advisors, or SMAs. Just in a de facto manner, commissioners and agency resources are already bound to the State Ethics and Disclosure Act, as well as an executive order on the Code of Ethics to prevent any kind of conflict of interests. Additionally, SMAs, to make sure we had coverage and independence there, were required to sign a code of conduct to affirm their independence as part of the overall SMA onboarding and engagement. And both for commissioners, agency resources, and the SMAs, there was a tertiary conflict check where we asked all of those reviewing proposals whether they had any kind of business relationship with qualified vendors. Those didn't have to necessarily be financial. Those could have been even working with or having relations with people at the different organizations. So we were quite conservative on that front, and we were able to assign commissioners to proposals in which they still had experience and were able to review, but did not have any kind of conflicts. So before I move on to results, are there any questions on the overall setup and objective of the exercise? Hearing none, I will go ahead and continue. So in terms of results, we did receive 38 proposals across our 7 RFPs, and those came from 33 qualified vendors. So again, there's some that can that did submit proposals in multiple different RFPs. For the 7, we received 9 submissions for RFP1, which is again the token design, 7 for RFP2, which is the token distribution and support, 6 in RFP3, which is on-chain analytics, 6 for RFP4, which is reserves management, 4 submissions for RFP5, which is our internal controls framework, 2 submissions for RFP6, which is financial audit and attestation, and 4 in RFP7, which is ecosystem intelligence. So to walk through these one by one and give you an idea of who we deemed to bring onto the oral interviews based on the functionality at offer, as well as preliminary scoring. For RFP1, token development and support, those qualified vendors were Bridge Ventures Incorporated, Layer Zero Labs Limited, Miston Labs Incorporated, Ava Labs Incorporated, and Fireblocks Incorporated. For those latter 2, Ava Labs and Fireblocks, we do expect them to be consolidated with a oral interview for RFP2, because in RFP2 for token distribution and support, our qualified vendors that we are going to bring forth recommending blockchain.com Incorporated, Ava Labs Incorporated, and Fireblocks Incorporated. So again, there's a slight bit of repetition there that is intentional, as these firms cover multiple different areas. For RFP3, which is on-chain analytics, of the 6 vendor submissions, we are looking to bring forth Chainalysis Government Solutions, LLC, Solidus Labs Incorporated, and TRM Labs Incorporated to oral interviews. For RFP4, which is reserves management, again, of 6 proposals, we have 3 here. One would be Securitized Markets LLC, and that would be with the structure of the BlackRock USD Institutional Digital Liquidity Fund, also known as the BUIDL Fund. Franklin Advisors, Inc., which is a branch of Franklin Templeton, and that again would be a fund structure as the Franklin On-Chain U.S. Government Money Fund, or the Benji Fund, and then Northern Trust Company, which is not a fund structure necessarily, but does have all of the components we were looking for within the context of RFP4, which is investment management, custody, and overall support of the reserves function. For RFP5, for internal controls, of the 4 proposals we received, we're looking to speak further with Deloitte and Touche LLP, Ernst & Young LLP, and KPMG LLP. For RFP 6, financial audit and attestation, we did have 2 vendors that submitted proposals, and we would look to bring both of them forward. Those are Grant Thornton LLP and the Network Firm LLP. And then finally, for ecosystem intelligence I believe there was 4 proposals received. We look to bring forward Cube Security Incorporated, Inca Digital Federal LLC, and Solidus Labs Incorporated to oral interviews as our next step. So for any other context about next steps and how we look to do this, are there any questions on the vendors that we have put forth here that we'd like to speak with further, the evaluation committees would like to speak with further for oral interviews? Hearing none, I will continue with the document. So a couple of other notes on this just for context. For our procurement rules, just to replay some of what is relevant to this particular discussion. Again, we do try to have 3 or more proposals for each section and 3 or more vendors for interviews. In the case that we do not receive 3 proposals, we can interview all proposing firms and then move forward, and we are doing that with RFP 6, so I did want to call that out specifically. I think the belief amongst the evaluation committee is we do have sufficient coverage, but again, if there is a difference of opinion, we can always solicit other proposals or revert back a few steps in the process and restart. But from the evaluation committees, the belief is there is sufficient coverage for what we need to build out the initial version of the Wyoming stable token. And in terms of next steps, again, following this discussion, should the cohort of vendors be approved by the commission, myself and the team will reach out directly to those vendors to let them know that they are moving on in the oral interview process. We already have set up a fairly robust system for those to be scheduled. We've collected open times from all members of the evaluation committee. We will propose those open times to the vendors and see what we can get 75-minute meetings on the calendars with each. The goal is not to necessarily re-review proposals, as the expectation is both the vendors and the evaluation committee will have that context. The focus of those discussions will be on questions from the evaluation committee and digging in further to any particular element of the build or structure that we're looking to put together. And hopefully, if there are any questions for us as well, we will certainly be able to respond to those. The goal here is to host those over a fairly truncated period of time between Monday, February 17th and Tuesday, February 25th. And then the goal would be to present those results to the commission at the monthly meeting occurring the morning of Thursday, February 27th at the Wyoming State Capitol. I will specify at this point in time that per our procurement rules, the recommendation by the evaluation committee at the meeting on the 27th will be for the vendor that scores the highest in our criteria. Those have been shared with the commissioners, the preliminary scoring sheets for the vendors and the proposals that we received. And again, that is highest score wins. These are organizations that have been qualified, proposals reviewed, and they are scored independently by each of the evaluation committee members. One step further than that, the expectation would be at that meeting on the 27th, again, if the commission wants to move forward in that direction. Typically, the way we've done vendor negotiations is the commission will empower the executive director to enter into negotiations with those vendors. And that would be the responsibility I would take on subsequent to that meeting. And again, our procurement rules specify that should we not be able to consummate the negotiations with a particular vendor, particularly that one in the first spot, the executive director would be allowed, based on the rules, to just simply move through the list of vendors and continue negotiations as they see fit, rather than having to go back to commission every time. So it'll be kind of one more gate for this process. And then hopefully we'll begin engaging some of these vendors in the first week or 2 of March, with the expectation of having a test token available for again, testing definitionally by the end of March. So with that all said, my personal recommendation as director would be to authorize the director or designee to schedule oral interviews with qualified vendors as recommended by the respective evaluation committees for RFPs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And with all that said, I will pause for any questions. Happy to answer if there are any.
Director Apollo, one question, and it's at the portion 4 of Chapter 2, Section 8 procurement rules, where if the commission is unsatisfied with the results of interviews, it may interview not less than 2 additional firms that provided proposals. Do you have I'm not anticipating we'll have problems, but I also like to know what happens if we do.
Sure. So, Mr. Chairman, first, just noting that Commissioner Meyer is on the call, so we will update our quorum tracker here. But from my perspective, what we would do is move through, in terms of the preliminary scores, we would simply move through the next highest scoring organizations to continue having interviews. There may be some more nuance in those conversations if there are instances where a particular vendor does not have a full feature set, whereas the vendors that we are speaking with and interviewing perhaps do. And what that may result in, and I can think of only 1 or 2 instances where, again, this would be 2 or 3 ifs down the line, but there may need to be, let's say for reserves management, if we wanted to move through and interview a firm that did the investment management, but not the custody side of things, we may need to reopen up, for example, a custody RFQ and RFP. But again, we've already socialized as well, so there are certainly some organizations that can be brought back into the fold rather quickly. But I, like yourself, I'm not expecting any issues to result from the interviews, and I think we've got good coverage. And I don't mean to speak for the evaluation committees, but I think that would be the sentiment with them as well.
I think that's fine. I just wanted to have some sort of generalized notion from commissioners if that was their understanding as well. And a thumbs up or a yay or whatever would be, that's not a vote, but okay, perfect. Great, thanks. So, great, thank you. Thank you, Director. I just appreciate that.
Of course, Mr. Chairman.
Are there other questions? Other questions?
I guess I apologize for getting in here late, guys, but just can you just give me a 35,000 foot view of what you're going to have 2 more, I guess, shots at something, but what classification is it? Is it blockchain? Is it the other stuff that we're going on? What is it?
So through the chair, Commissioner Meyer, what we're looking to do here is approve a subset of our qualified vendors on a per RFP basis. So for all the functions we're looking at, to continue into oral interviews with that particular subset based on the scores that were provided by our evaluation committees on the proposals we received. And I've scrolled back up in the document here so you can see per each RFP who those parties are. I've got a little bit more to say on what will come at the meeting on the 27th around some of the larger, well, this is a very large initiative, but some of the other parallel components to what we're doing. But for the specific action we're looking for at this time, it would be for the commissioners to approve the list of qualified vendors we wish to speak with for oral interviews, and then we will get to scheduling those and continuing the conversation.
All right.
Further questions? Further questions? If there are none, Director, it seems appropriate to ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Pope.
just a quick question. Would you like blanket approval on this, Director Apollo, or do we go RFP by RFP?
Through the chair, if that's to me, I think a blanket would be fine, but I will leave that to the determination of the chairman.
Commissioner Pope, I think that's up to you. It does seem to me we've worked them all. I think they should be each enumerated in a motion if we are doing it together.
Okay, then the motion that I would like to put forth is that we approve the selection of vendors for oral interviews, and authorize the executive director or his designee to schedule those oral interviews with the vendors as recommended by the respective evaluation committees for RFPs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 in blanket.
Commissioners, you've heard Commissioner Pope's motion. Is there support for it?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Commissioner Naves. Is there any further discussion? Any further discussion? Commissioner Wallace?
No, I didn't have anything to add to that. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner,
having not been in several of those committees, but on some of them, I think at this time, I think that if a nominee came from the floor, that it would, for the director to consider that that would be something that we may want to entertain, just in case we get into a situation that is needs addressed.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Pope.
I believe Director Apollo already asked for nominees from the floor, but I think as part of my my motion, I have no issues if he has someone to present. Or nominate.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think we need to look at the if the elephant in the room hasn't been addressed, I think we need to look at, at least getting Cardona to the table if they're not already there by some other means or mechanism. So that would be my suggestion.
Mr. Chairman, not to interject, but I do have a comment on that. It's going to be external from the discussion about the completed RFP processes and the submissions and the reviews and the next steps in moving towards engagement. But I do have an update on that in regards to our upcoming meeting on the 27th.
And just because I think we have a motion and we have a second, and I would not recommend this because I think if you're rattling sabers and making comments about elections, probably inappropriate to talk about it is with regard to this particular motion, which at this point is clean. But I think if we want to have,
Mr. Chairman, question.
thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 No.
Noes?
No.
Okay, thank you. That motion does carry. Now I would entertain a motion to put Cardano in the queue, understanding that it would have skipped all of the analysis, but on the basis of their proposal and claim that they can meet the requirements. I would entertain such a motion.
I would so move, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Meyer. Is there support for Commissioner Meyer's request? Is there?
I would second.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Wallace. We have a motion before us. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'll have Commissioner Meyer first.
Yeah. One of the, I think, use cases that we may entertain with Cardano would be, as you guys know well, that we've brought in quite a little bit of crypto money that that's in basically it's in the African continent, somewhere around now I think it's about 250 million. And I think it would offer us a opportunity with that blockchain, because I think that Cardano has had some experience in that continent to actually get stable token in that third world situation where their banking system is not like ours. It's basically everybody that's got a cell phone has got some kind of an account. So I think that they're particularly qualified to look at that particular use case. And so that's what I think that would actually make a great deal of sense to move forward in that manner. And I think it allows us to make some investments in from our office in the our own stable tokens to implement the rest of that, and at the same time gaining access, outside of our borders, which doesn't influence, any banking concerns or anybody else that may think that we may have some competition in different areas, because we're halfway across the world.
Thank you, Commissioner Meyer. Is there further comment? I think Commissioner Navis, did I hear you?
No, it was me, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, okay. Commissioner Racinas.
Mr. Chairman, I don't disagree with the concept. Where I'm struggling in, and I apologize if I am, my understanding of where we are in the process is everybody else has submitted RFPs, and then these have been combed through with a fine-tooth comb by multiple people. We don't have an RFP from Cardano. Is that all accurate?
Director Apollo.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Auditor Commissioner Racinez, that is correct. To the governor's earlier comment, this would be bringing forward a party that has not participated in several of the steps. I also do feel the need to clarify several things along the way. First and foremost, Cardano is a public blockchain. Cardano is not an entity that we could send a RFQ or a RFP to. If you are talking about specific people or organizations, again, as we've discussed in the past, Input Output Global is a Wyoming domiciled company, the founder of which did help create the Cardano blockchain and then subsequently help decentralize the Cardano blockchain. But that would be the business entity that we're talking about, not a blockchain network. If we were going to talk about the blockchain network, that is another element where in our blockchain selection exercise in November, there is, we did not elect Cardano as one of our candidate blockchains. And when we disqualified them for a specific reason, we did receive a letter from Input Output Global's leadership team attesting that they did not have the feature that we needed at that time. Had I had an opportunity to speak about what would come next in our subsequent meeting, one of the things I wanted to discuss was a refresh of the blockchain selection exercise. A few notes here. First and foremost, we do have our procurement rules, the final version of them that have been submitted through the process. It does take some time to get that through. But as you can recall in our, I believe, one of our January or December meetings, the commission did vote and approve an additional chapter to the procurement rules, which would have rolling qualifications both for blockchain networks and vendors. So while that process is still ongoing to promulgate those rules, the team internally has said, if you want to do this on a quarterly basis, no reason not to start in good faith. And the team already has begun updating the blockchain selection exercise because there are not just one, but several networks that would pass binary criteria now that had not in the past. Cardano is one of them. We had disqualified them for the lack of a freeze and seize feature. They have successfully demonstrated that feature, at least in a test environment. When we did our selection exercise, we did mandate that technology needed to be existing and demonstrable. There's now been a demonstration of that capability. Further, Dfinity, which is another blockchain, also known as the Internet Computer, they did not make it through our initial assessment because they did not have coverage from a plurality of on-chain analytics firms. Now they do. So again, and then one other one would be Ripple, for example. Now they have their own stable token in market that has sufficient size to it. So there are a number of chains that would make it back to the process. We wanted to recognize that, and we were proactively working on that to begin with. So I do want to put all of those facts out there during this discussion, because I think that should help clarify where we stand as an agency, the work that's happening, in addition to all of the RFP reviews that have been ongoing, and what could come downstream of that should we start beginning to qualify other vendors or technology stacks.
Thank you, Director Apollo. I see Commissioner Pope.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to vote against this this addition mainly because we are putting into place. I want to see Cardano eventually be able to put forth an RFP as well, but since they were not available for this first round, our rolling qualifications address exactly the situation that that they're in, and I think that it will be a short period of time before we can consider them. And to insert someone right now would only slow down our process, because I would expect that they would have to go through the same scrutiny that everyone else did. It is patently unfair not to have them go through that, unfair to the other candidates. And again, we have addressed the situation in that we created the rolling qualifications for exactly this purpose, and therefore I think inserting them now is would be improper.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Meyer.
Yeah, I guess, you know, with the understanding that Cardano isn't what we're looking at. It was what was it? The name of the company? Input Output Computer or something, or
Input Output Global.
Input Output Global. I guess then I would modify that motion to say that at our earliest convenience that we send an invitation for Input Output Global to enter into the RFP process and give them everything possible that's in the rules, a copy of the rules, and everything that they have to do to move through this process. But let's invite them and let them know that we believe they've met the qualifications of the test of freeze and seize, and let them know what the rest of the hoops and stuff they have to jump in through and around that everybody else has done, but make it very expressed, not just the invitations to come on over, but tell them everything they possibly have to do, so there's no misunderstanding or miscommunication of what is required that everyone else has done. So that's what I'd like to basically have them have us acknowledge that, so we can start to hopefully heal the rift in this circumstance.
Thank you, Commissioner Meyer. Commissioner Wallace, I think the functional part of that statement was to change from Cardano to Input Output Global. Do you support that?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, thank you. We have a modified motion before us. I would note, and I appreciate, Commissioner Pope, I'm sorry.
Final last question. This would be for Director Apollo. If we were to insert someone right now, what would that change as far as our timeline?
No, you don't. You misunderstand the question, Mr. Pope. I mean the motion. It was to basically insert them, tell them that the time for getting everything together and to us would be April 1. That would be the start of the first quota. I mean the first quarter.
All right, I hear that as another modification.
Or would it be May 1? I'm Anthony.
Commissioner Meyer, I didn't hear a date certain before. So
But the date's certain when they have to have all the things that everybody else has done and jumped through the hoops, when they have to have all that available, and I guess January, February, March, I guess it would be April 1 if we're doing this on a quarterly basis.
Commissioner Meyer, just a couple of things. I thought I heard in your comments that we would instruct Input Output Global that they had cleared all the hurdles and they would be part of.
No, just the one that stopped, that basically got them out of the queue, which was the freeze and seize. And I did hear Director Apollo say that they had demonstrated that. So I think we have to acknowledge that they have demonstrated that, and then tell them everything that everybody else has already gone through. I think that was a valid point, that everybody else has gone through all these different things, but tell them, that the process for, is opening up, and this is the date. It's the first day of the calendar quarter. And that's when we're going to be looking at, or taking a look at, some of the other folks that are coming on.
Commissioner Pope.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As long as this motion is to inform them that they would be considered under the rolling qualifications procedures, which was our intent in the beginning. I'm not sure the necessity of the motion, because I think that would be understood, but I would be for that, as long as that is understood, that they would have to qualify under the rolling qualifications procedures. And again, because that's why they were created anyway, and they're one of the reasons we wanted to do that. So okay, I am on board, as long as that's what it is, and it does not push us any further behind, because I've already been questioned by legislators on why we are so far behind from our original goal. And I don't want to, I want us to proceed efficiently and economically toward that goal. And as long as this doesn't sacrifice that, I would be for it.
Thank you. Commissioner in office.
Thank you, Governor. Yeah, similar to Commissioner Pope, I don't understand the motion. I apologize. I think because there were so many modifications, I'm a little confused what it's meant to address. If the motion is to let vendors that may not have qualified in prior rounds to know that there is a new round and that they will be considered again for qualification, all vendors, I'm open to considering that motion. I just did not understand because there's so many modifications. I got really confused. That's it. Thank you, Governor.
Mr. Chairman, may I restate it so everybody knows what we're looking at and what I'm trying to do with this? I think to the degree that we are telling them that they're will be considered for this round that's going to start April 1st. I think that's what we're going to do. But I think it's imperative that we list everything that everybody has done and qualified for now, and how they actually demonstrated that qualification. So there's absolutely no misunderstanding about the game rules, and they can't be misunderstood by anyone as this goes forward. And to affirmatively say that we believe for the freeze and seize that have demonstrated that capacity. And that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at a very, very clear transparent letter that would go out to all of these different people that have been told that, you know, you didn't qualify and we think that they might. And I think that's really important because we don't want to have any situation where there's a gotcha moment on anything, where somebody's saying, well, you didn't tell us we had to do this, you know. And I think we probably need to say, so we don't have a situation about, so we, the format in which they respond to that is clear and concise and unambiguous. So, you know, to that extent, I'm just trying to make sure that nobody thinks that they had a gotcha on them, and that everything is a level playing field type of a thing moving forward. So, and I think that would go a long ways if we just acknowledge that we believe that they have met the freeze and seize. Then I think that would go a long ways to getting this thing a little bit more under control. But does that make a sense to you, Jeff? And do you understand what we're trying to accomplish here? And I would leave it up to the
Commissioner, let me restate. I hear this as two distinct issues. One is to make an attestation that is clear to anyone who wants to be in the next round about what the expectations are. And
yes.
I think that I hear that as something that we would do. I don't believe there would be any concern about that. That process has been open. That process has gone through public scrutiny, and that process is also available on our website. But I think it probably helps to be able to notify again. The second part of it is that there have been allegations that somehow procurement has been opaque, that it has been subject to bias and a number of other allegations that were made in a peaked press conference. And I think the response is that we want to respond to that by approving Input Output Global and just say that they've met all the requirements. I think that just, the elephant in the room is that allegations were made that our procurement process is broken, and that therefore, since Cardano was not approved, that therefore that process is broken, and therefore we need to put them in the queue when they would be available to go in there on a rolling basis anyway. I just want to make it clear, this is a response to a press conference where allegations were made that were terribly unfortunate and inaccurate about what our process has been. Is that fair?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think that's an analysis that is accurate. But I don't believe that we move this ball down the field, by if they either did their freeze and seize or they didn't, But I think it's really important that we, if we're going to do the exact same thing that we did in the first deal, as far as how it is, we put it out there and we tell them from our perspective that they've met their freeze and seize. And if they join into the process that was exactly the same that it was on the other one, then I think that makes our point, that it is not as bad as he said because he's back. Now, if he doesn't come back and he refuses to engage, that's up to him. But I think that we need to engage, I think, in an affirmative way to attest not everything that they've done, but just the freeze and seize. And so that gets them back in that situation. And I don't know if we've had other people on the Freeze and Seas. I wasn't on that committee. I don't know what was used to qualify the Freeze and Seas aspects of that, or whether we could go, I think that the question that was brought up with is that information that was used that was before the process of what Cardona or Global thought was the main winnowing process. And I can go into a lot of things that were said anecdotally and by different people in that organization, which leads me with a bad taste in my mouth. I think probably just like you guys. But from at one point in time, you have to see whether or not you can on equal footing and re-engage this vendor. And if they re-engage, then everything they said is BS because they're back. And so I just want to just have a straightforward re-engagement and communication.
Commissioner Meyer, let me just ask, are you asking for special dispensation for input, output, global, and that they somehow not participate in the normal process that would be open for, and I think Director Apollo indicated there were at least 2 other applicants that might meet the same opportunity, but you're asking for special consideration of input, output, global.
I'm asking that we be very careful and make sure that everybody that wants to participate in this second rolling round, that everybody has everything they need to know and they completely understand it. And we have a mechanism that if there's any doubt at all about what they have to do, then we have a mechanism to communicate with exactly what that is. And my belief is that if we do that and they re-engage, then all the hyperbole about the exaggerations about the procurement process being unfair and everything else goes away because he's re-engaged. So, and that's what I'm saying. It's just get it out there and see if he moves forward. If he moves forward, then I think we can put this in our rear view mirror.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Pope.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Meyer. I appreciate all of your clarifications on that. That helps me a lot. One of the things we can do is possibly have a motion, because this involves 2 separate things. The main one is the selection of a blockchain. And blockchains that the stable token will ultimately be issued on. And I think what we can do is just publicly release the fact that we will that after April 1st, since we're doing this on a quarterly basis, or every quarter, we will reassess our blockchain selections and publish the criteria for those selections and go through our process again and our scoring. And just like we did the first time, all of this information is available to the public on how those were selected. I believe, and Director Apollo can let me know if I'm wrong, but we need to just decide that we are going to go through that process again on a quarterly basis, so that people who have been excluded, or blockchains that have been excluded, because we're talking about 2 different things: the blockchain selection, which is a very deliberate process, and then we're talking about selecting from those selections companies that will build on that blockchain. And so that's 2 separate things. And so if we make it a practice to reassess every quarter after publicly disclosing all of the rules that we're going to follow, and any modifications to prior rules and prior requirements. I think that's great, because I want to see our stable token on the major blockchains, the ones that have the ability to host us and have the ability to for us to be on, because I want as wide of distribution as possible. It is antithetical to what we're trying to do to limit our potential distribution. So I think we reassess every quarter if necessary. And we publish that ahead of time. Since Cardano is part of Wyoming now, IOG is part of Wyoming now, we can send them notice. We can make sure that they're on the list to receive those distributions. I have no issues with that whatsoever, because my goal is to have as wide a distribution as possible. So, but that should be the goal, is to reassess the blockchains first, and then the people that will build upon them will be assessed as vendors, as we have done in this exercise.
And I guess at one point in time, and I think we go ahead and vote on that. I think that's what I'm trying to get Commissioner Pope is that, but I think I want to try to have it a little personal on to these people that have been in the process, and so they know that they have, by a certified mail and a return receipt email or whatever, that they received it, and they know that we know that they've got it. So there's no question about, well, I don't know what you were talking about, and you didn't, you can give me the time of the day. So those are the things I think we need to, basically just cross our T's, dot our I's on these things in this communication process. So, and it's great that we got that letter, because it spells it out that they didn't have freeze and seize. Had we not had that, then I think we would have been in a situation where it's a he said, she said thing. But I want to make sure that we don't get in those type of situations and just do it in that business manner. The other thing is that I'd like to get a little more involved in the marketing aspect of this, to find out that business plan in that area there. So to the extent that I can join into that stuff or get more communication, I'd really enjoy that. Thank you. So I guess I would let the director go ahead and take our discussion and write or the chairman write the amendment to what was been reflected by our discussion, and we can move on.
Thank you. And I would just note we have some 32 attendees. Input Output Global, or at least representatives, have been on other calls and at the meetings. But I think certainly a certified letter makes sense. Commissioner Meyer, Commissioner Pope's motion is perhaps a little clearer, and I don't know if you would go for perhaps the substitute that covers your concerns, if that makes sense.
Well, Mr. Chairman, that's fine, but I'll just say I'll be wanting to get some CCs on these communications, so I know that what I wanted to get done is being done. Thank you,
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Do we have a motion still on the table? I think we need to.
I'll go ahead and withdraw it if the second's okay, and Commissioner Pope, go ahead and just run with it.
Okay. So Commissioner Wallace, I thought you nodded your head as the seconder. That's okay to withdraw the motion?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Pope.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Then my motion would be that we make it an internal policy to reassess the blockchain scoring system and the blockchains and the subject blockchains on a quarterly basis beginning April 1st of 2025. And to satisfy Commissioner Meyer's concerns, and I think all of our concerns too, make certain that disaffected blockchains and companies that have indicated a desire to do so receive communications directly via certified mail as to the qualifications required and the scoring system that will be used.
Mr. Chairman, a question. Are we going to change the scoring system, or are we just going to reassess the vendors in accordance with the existing scoring system?
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Pope.
My my intent is to re-examine based on feedback, based on what works and what doesn't work. We will be in a continuous process of reassessing all of our scoring systems and abilities, or scoring systems and procedures, just to make sure that we're doing the best job we can. I have no intention, especially in this first round, of trying to fit in a reassessment of the scoring system, or trying to force Dr. Apollo to do that. But I think we have to from time to time reassess that scoring system as well. As long as we do it in a public manner and get feedback from the public in these meetings, I don't see any reason why we shouldn't try and make what we do better.
Okay, just
Mr. Chairman, if I can jump in quickly.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Meyer, I didn't hear you.
Oh, I'm just saying that we're going to have to go through if we change anything, to make it more responsive to what we feel, what direction we need to go, then that will I think need quite a little bit of time in between implementation for people to understand what the new rules are.
Okay.
So, yeah, because you're basically building the plane while you're flying it, and I think that's not a bad idea from this standpoint, but that things have to change. But we have to realize that communication and understanding and going back and forth as to the questions that any vendor would have, that is a whole process that does take quite a little bit of time, and I think it has to occur anyway. And I know that Norm knows exactly what that is, and so I think that we just need to make sure that if the rules of the game change, everybody knows it. They know it right up front, and then that they have that opportunity to have communications to make sure they do understand and what it is. So hopefully it won't get too different, because then we're right back to the same situation where some people may not understand what it is, but we're going to have to be really, really diligent. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Meyer. Commissioner Pope.
Mr. Chairman, since I have not received a second yet, I am going to feel free to modify my amendment with an add to the end with the understanding that no changes to the blockchain scoring system will occur for the first quarterly reassessment beginning in April 1st, 2025. I have no intention of doing that. Having us change those rules right now. What I'm saying is, I think we need to have a process for continual improvement and continually trying to predict both market forces, attack vectors, and other things that we may need to reassess in trying to be proactive rather than trying to shut the barn door after the horses got out. So that's my.
I,
So
I
that's
second Commissioner Pope motion.
thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure if you're speaking, but it would seem that you're on mute at the moment.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Thank you. I was saying thank you very much. I think the motion's been made and seconded. If there is no further discussion, I will move to a vote.
Mr. Chairman?
Director Apollo.
Yeah, I don't know if this is an appropriate juncture for me to jump in here with the motion, as I'm not a voting member, but I just do want to be specific that what we're talking about has a lot of overlap with the system we've already moved to put into place with our rolling qualifications. I have it shared on screen now. Hopefully that's visible, but what we're talking about with this motion is fundamentally what we've already proactively put into place through rules and through the actions of this team. In addition to all the work that we already have going on, we've proactively gone and underwent this exercise. So I will let the motion play out. I just wanted to make sure that if anyone was looking for any kind of specificity about how we would roll this out and how criteria would change and who would approve it, we've already taken several steps in that direction ahead of time.
And Director Apollo, I was aware of that, and I thank you for that. I do see Flavia, Commissioner Naves.
Thank you, Governor. I'm just going to repeat what Anthony said. I'm not sure that this motion is needed based on what we already have in place, because it's just reaffirming what we already have. So I just don't know that it's needed at this moment. Those are my comments. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, Commissioner Naves. Commissioner Pope.
As the author of the motion, I think I can respond to that. The only addition to what our current procedures are, as I see it, is the specificity on the return, the email or the mail with return receipt requested, and some of the attempt to have a more collegial relationship with certain vendors. And I'm all for that. And then from that point, let the chips fall where they may, and we can all move on with the understanding that we are attempting to rectify a situation that arose previously with the first selection, which was that first selection, I believe, was done completely and utterly without bias. And and so if we can give the public a greater assurance of that, I'm fine with it. But that's the only real difference in our current procedures, is that we are treating disaffected vendors with a little more specificity, and again trying to create that more collegial atmosphere.
Thank you, Commissioner Pope. I just want to note for my clarification, I think there was conversation about certified mail, and there's also return receipt requested. There may be practicable issues in either of those. Did you have a particular preference?
Certified return receipt requested is something my office does all the time with our awesome and wonderful Internal Revenue Service, all communications with them, and it works marvelously.
So that's the motion. Thank you. You've heard the motion. If there are any clarifying questions, is there any further discussion? If there is none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Are there nays? And abstentions? That motion carries. Back to you, Director Apollo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for the sake of time, I know we had an hour allocated for this one. That is functionally, from my perspective, the end of the business. As I had discussed before, just to quickly recap for our meeting on the 27th, we do expect to come to that discussion with the results of the oral interviews and the scoring from the evaluation committee. So we'll present the top scoring candidates for the respective RFPs is one. Second is we do expect to have the first draft of the reserve management rules that'll be prepared for presentation. So we can continue moving forward with that. And again, I think at this point we've discussed in depth the blockchain selection refresh that has already been underway. So more to come on that at that time. But I think what the discussion we've been having here is in line with what's already been worked on and will continue to progress. Beyond that, we do have our next monthly meeting, I guess, on the 27th in the Wyoming Capitol Auditorium. After that would be March 20th in the Capitol Auditorium, same time, same place. We do not have public comment on the calendar for today. So, Mr. Chairman, I would turn it over to you and the commission for a motion to adjourn.
Is there any further business to come before the commission today? If there is not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
It's been moved. It's been seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you. We are adjourned.